the calm before the storm here on the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. I'm Brandon Cruz, Lily Zhao along with me here in the studio, and Tim Van Vooren is out in New Jersey standing right by the Hudson as the Packers get ready to take on the Giants tomorrow night. Here's your starting lineup. We get ready for that Monday night matchup between the Packers and the Giants. The Bucs get outpaced in the tournament semifinals, the first NBA Cup. Tyler Kolek makes us say what. The Golden Eagles and Badgers meet some ranked competition as they ramp up towards conference play. And of course, we have our high school hotshot.
You know, it's a credit to the character of the locker room to be able to fight through some adversity, stick together, not point fingers, with the mindset of trying to get better each and every day. I think that's really where it kind of turned for us, is they've kept to that mindset and kind of let the results fall where they may, and we need to continue with that moving forward.
Matt LaFleur talking about where his Packers are, where they want to go. Well, we know they want to go to Giants Stadium tomorrow night. That's where Tim Van Vooren is near tonight in Hoboken, New Jersey. And Tim, when you're out there and you're looking at the weather and all of this, it's a whole new environment for the Packers, both weather-wise right now and also with how they go into this game as a favorite and a team that has been playing very, very well.
You're exactly right, Brandon. It sums it up perfectly, because this team has not been in this position. Hasn't had a windy, weathery type factored game, no question about that, but has not been the favorite, has not played with expectations, has really not played with that same pressure of we need to win now to keep ourselves in the playoff hunt. Matt LaFleur talking about trying to just steadily get better. The Packers have done that. The coaching staff has done that. Now, can it sustain that? Several underdogs won this weekend in the NFL. The Packers want to prohibit that from happening tomorrow night.
Yeah, sometimes that becomes a trend in the NFL. You see it kind of happen game after game after game. Tim, with this game happening and them being a favorite and them playing so well, it's not a term that we've been able to use this year with this team, but how do they avoid this being a trap game for them, because they've been heralded going into this week?
It's so funny you'd say that, because earlier this season there were some teams that looked as the Packers as a trap opponent. Maybe we'd get caught looking past them. Now the Packers do have the New York Giants. What they have to do, Brandon, is keep doing what they've been doing, and that's simply said, but maybe not so simply done. Green Bay has not been turning the football over, hasn't turned the football over in the last 3 games. How do you beat yourself? Give up the football. Green Bay cannot afford to do that on Monday night. And bear in mind that the Giants over the last 3 games have 11 takeaways. So if you just look at those 2 numbers, that's how New York's done a little bit here late in the season, and how Green Bay has done so much more as the season has gone along by not shooting the Packers themselves in the foot.
And Tim, you know, A.J. Dillon talked about this Packers team now turning from the hunter to the hunted. You have Jordan Love saying every game is like a playoff game for this young team now moving forward. So in your opinion, how important is just kind of keeping their foot on the gas pedal, knowing what's ahead of them, knowing the playoff picture is right there for them as well, especially also there in the NFC North?
I think very important, Lily, and I think getting ahead in the game would be the first step toward that. The Packers have had the lead, have had some control in the last couple of games. They look like a different team. We talk about all these things that are coming together, but you know what? That's part of it. They're early in the season, they were behind game after game after game and facing adverse situations, possession after possession. Guess what? They didn't look as good. Jordan Love didn't look as good. The offense didn't look as good. So getting ahead on the scoreboard at the start is part of what's happened of late. I think that would be one way the Packers would be able to keep their foot on the gas that you talked about.
And talking about keeping your foot on the gas pedal, and that comes kind of with explosive plays. We've seen it the last couple of weeks here with this Packers offense, but they won't have one of their big playmakers on offense in Christian Watson. Tim, does that really change anything for this Jordan Love offense, or is it still kind of business as usual, knowing that you still have young guys in the receiving corps that can kind of make up for that production that you don't have with Watson?
Well, the young guys have certainly come along, and some of those other receivers down the depth chart have stepped up a little bit, Lily, but I think it does matter. I think Christian Watson was a high second-round draft choice for a reason. He's a gazelle when he's on the field. He doesn't catch every ball, but he does open up the field. And keep in mind, they're still playing without Luke Musgrave. Now, Tucker Kraft has stepped up at tight end, but that is two offensive weapons that really helped start the resurgence in the course of this season that Green Bay will be without on Monday night. So I think Watson's absence is notable.
And let's stick with that theme. They might be without Aaron Jones. We won't know until tomorrow night if he is able to go. What does their running back situation look like? Because we also know that A.J. Dillon has been dealing with an injury, but he's been able to play.
And that's been huge because December is Dillon time. It happens in outdoor conditions. You're going to have that on Monday night. The Packers have been a much more decisive team of late in terms of on the ground because they've known they haven't had Aaron Jones. They're going to try to slam it up straight ahead, and A.J. Dillon's been up to that task. So they'll be watching that again on Monday night. His availability will be certainly a factor going into the game.
All right, we can't wait for the Packers and the Giants on Monday Night Football in New Jersey. Well, it's halftime. That means it's time for the Fox 6 Blitz Insta Poll. You can go directly to the question right now by scanning the QR code on the screen or just go to fox6now.com. The question is, what's the biggest issue for the Bucs right now? Is it chemistry? Is it coaching? Is it defense? Is it Giannis and Dame? What about the supporting cast? We're looking for your answers, and we will show those throughout the show as we now move on to the second half. This is a Bucs team right now that, if you look at it with the record and with where they got in the in-season tournament for the NBA, they make it to the semifinal. They lose a very close game to Indiana, but they lose. And we're talking about this team not really being together despite the fact that they've played somewhat well of late. What do you attribute right now to the fact that this team doesn't seem to be a complete unit at this point in time as they go into the second quarter of the season?
Right. You know, we're 22 games in. We have 60 left. But when you look at the product on the court, right, you talk about the Bucs are still very much there in terms of the Eastern Conference contenders. But when you're watching the game as a whole, just something feels off. It just feels like guys are kind of out of sync sometimes. The defense is still very lackadaisical. You talk about the Pacers game in the semifinals there, and they were just sloppy in clutch time. And that's what this Bucs team has kind of held their hat on, is saying we can play really well in the fourth quarter, especially down the stretch in those final 5 minutes. They didn't do that against Indiana. They were sloppy. They turned the ball over. Guys didn't play well. But now it's trying to figure out, guys are going to come for them every single game. How do they combat that, knowing that they're going to get their best shot, right, from opponents every single night? But something just seems a little bit off right now, but I don't think it's time to panic yet, Brandon. But we'll see if they can get things figured out, hopefully more so on the defensive side as we get further along in the season.
And Tim, one of the things that was talked about, especially after the loss to the Pacers, was about this team trying to figure out who they are. Are they there to win? Are they there knowing what they're doing on offense? Are they there knowing what they're supposed to do on defense? And the answer from at least Giannis Antetokounmpo was that they don't know those answers at this point in time. Is that a big concern if you're hearing that from the star publicly about where this team is or isn't at this point?
I think it's a concern. I think you can say that if they have it figured out by April, it's okay, but are they going to get things figured out by April? That's the largest question. The Blitz poll question, that my answer would be the defense. Way too inconsistent on that end of the court. Lily's exactly right. Sloppy at times in that Pacers game. So many of the games they've won this season, they've just had to outscore teams, and it's been individual will. It's been Giannis and Damian Lillard and Brook Lopez down the stretch just putting in the basketball. So I think right now they are still struggling. They don't have that defensive foundation to bank on as they have in the past. They've made alterations in the offseason. They've made them in season defensively. So they're still trying to say what exactly, to go to Lily's kind of slogan there, what are they going to hang their hat on right now? What is it? Is it offense? Is it trying to score? Is it the pick and roll? Is it the defense? I don't think they can say definitively yes to any of those things.
And Lily, because of that, do we have to look at Adrian Griffin and his staff and say, what's going on here? Why aren't these things shored up already 22 games in?
Right. I think when you look at what was brought in with Adrian Griffin, right, you talked about his defense coming in. We could talk about what happened with Mike Budenholzer, but you bring in Adrian Griffin, who's kind of more of a defensive-minded coach, and you look at what he wants to implement on that side of the court, right? But then it doesn't seem like they have the personnel to do that. So can they make a move by the deadline to bring in a good wing defender to kind of now start to play really well on the perimeter and get guys off the ball? Because right now, they're not doing really much of anything defensively. And like Tim mentioned, their kind of game plan now is just simply outscore teams, and hopefully guys in the starting rotation have big performances. I mean, the bench has also been kind of lacking as well. So you kind of have to figure out if they can get maybe a couple more guys to buy into that philosophy or bring in somebody else to help with the defense. They can maybe turn the page there with head coach Adrian Griffin. But I know for him, he's going to say, I have to coach better as well. But we'll see if they can get better in that regard, because they will need to if they want to contend in the East.
And finally, Tim, with the Bucks, is this something that we have to be concerned about this team coming apart, because it is being aired publicly? I mean, you also find out that, Bobby Portis kind of lit into the team after their loss to the Pacers, and that got leaked out of the locker room. Now, as reporters, we all have contacts within organizations, and that's how some things get out. But he was surprised that it left the room that day. So to me, I'm wondering, is there a concern that this is all very fragile right now?
I think a little bit of a concern. Portis has played he's had such a long summer and everything's going on for him. How that got out in Las Vegas, I don't really know, but it's not the neat and tidy unit that sometimes we've come to expect from the Bucks.
All right, Tim Van Voren will be back out to you shortly. But first, we have to talk about a big money deal for the Brewers. They make a major move by signing Jackson Chourio, the top outfield prospect in their system. They signed him to an 8-year, $82 million deal this week. Now, this could be as much as $142 million, and it could reach 10 years, depending on what happens in the future. He has never played in the big leagues, but he has reached AAA this past season. We can see if he does come to Milwaukee this year. I know we will see him in Major League camp at Brewers spring training. So an exciting time for the Brewers to know they've locked down Jackson Chourio. Coming up, What Say What is coming up next.
I was telling everybody go home. You feel me? I was like, go home, man. Why y'all still here?
That's a good question.
I mean, give me a little, prep time for a question like that.
It's a little cold for butterflies to be out right now.
Okay, yeah, it just ruined my night.
I asked him about his feelings going into the game, and he's like, I don't really care. I coached there. A lot of the other guys on staff have coached there, but I don't really care, And I was like, bull. I know you care. And, after the game, I grabbed him. I said, this one was for you.
Welcome back to the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. Tim Van Voren out in Hoboken, New Jersey for Packers Giants, and Brandon Cruz in studio with me. And there you have Tyler Kolek with a big performance against then number 12 Texas, Shaka Smart's former team. Marquette winning big over them. And you hear his comments about Shaka kind of is more of a win now and in the present kind of guy, right? So, Brandon, I'll start with you here. Marquette, they bounced back pretty nicely after losing to Wisconsin, and they do so in big fashion, right? They beat Texas big. They beat Notre Dame big. Is this what you expected, this kind of response from the Golden Eagles after that loss?
I think so. I think that's the one thing you get about Shaka Smart teams. They have short memories, and they also play with the chip on their shoulder. And having such a special game right after that Wisconsin game with Texas coming in, Shaka's old team, I think it was huge for everybody. I think it gave an emotional lift to them after feeling down from being embarrassed by the Badgers, and then to be able to do it at home in front of a boisterous crowd and to do it in such fashion. I mean, they came out and dominated the Longhorns. They were 12th ranked going into this, and the Golden Eagles were 8th. Right, there was a clear separation between those teams, and it was all emotion. And Tyler Kolek, when he could, he put the pedal down. And it was almost as if it was his personal mission to give Shaka Smart that win.
Exactly. We didn't see him really play like Tyler Kolek against the Badgers, and he certainly did in the last couple of games. And moving on now to said Badgers, Tim, I'll go out to you here. Bucky, I mean, was this a game against top-ranked Arizona that they needed to play, kind of glass full here for you, that saying, they're the top team in the country for a reason, and while we didn't win, it's kind of a good gauge to say maybe we can maybe get there one day this season. Was that kind of maybe a feeling there for a glass half full type of of analysis, Tim?
You know, it's definitely possible, Lily. The first half was pretty competitive. Then Arizona just stretched that thing out, and you saw the talent and the long ability that they have to get things done on the court, making shots from all over the place. Wisconsin was outclassed athletically as that game went along. I think sometimes it's good to see that. You talked about Marquette responding well to the Wisconsin loss. Now can the Badgers respond well to this? Marquette learned from that Wisconsin loss. They needed to go back to the perimeter and adjust some things and do things that they do well. Now, Wisconsin, having seen what Arizona can offer, will go back into the Big Ten. Keep in mind, Wisconsin had a nice win at Michigan State this week, so they have a few things that they can look to say, we do this well. That's what we need to focus on.
Right. Again, future still bright for Wisconsin. Again, they went 2-1 against Marquette, Michigan State, and Arizona, so not too bad. All right, let's check in on our Insta-poll question. You can go directly to that question right now by scanning the QR code on the screen or go to fox6now.com. The question is, what is the biggest issue for the Bucks right now? And a majority of you guys say defense. Agreeing with Tim and what he said earlier on. We'll have more of your answers later in the show. Meanwhile, the Wisconsin women's volleyball team heading back to the Final Four. The Badgers are, of course, in the national semifinals for the 6th time after a 4-set win over Oregon. And how about this? The 2021 champion Badgers will now take on the 2022 champion Texas Longhorns on Thursday in one semifinal matchup. Nebraska and Pittsburgh round out the Final Four. And coming up next after the break, our high school hot shot. Keep it here.
Number 1 teams have advanced to the national semifinal.
Welcome back. It all started with a school project that put the student athlete on the path she was meant to walk. And it all started with connecting with her community in an even deeper way. Here's this week's Fox 6 High School Hot Shot.
Go get it, Taylor. Go get it. Go get it.
What's going on? My name is Taylor Freitag, and I'm a senior at New Berlin Eisenhower. I play softball. I've always been in a lot of sports and stuff like that, but I definitely love softball. And actually this past year for Eisenhower, we decided to take a little trip to state. We actually came up with a saying that I think will forever be the saying, and it's Roll Lions. I am going to college at Western Kentucky University. As you can see, I'll be a Hilltopper. I decided to pursue criminology major with a minor in military science, which is also known as ROTC. All of this started back in October. My mom and I kind of discussed and came up with the title Hugs for Heroes. We were raising as much money as we could, as well as raising all these donations to send packages overseas for our troops. If they can't spend, obviously, the holidays at home, then they have a little gift from people who are appreciative of their service and the things that they do for us. I was very happy the amount of support we had from the VFW and some of our surrounding community. It was definitely great to see the kind of people who just wanted to help. I've definitely thought about it, okay, what are these people going to feel when they get a package like this? Maybe they'll be happy, maybe they'll be joyful, maybe they'll tear up even a little bit thinking they can't be home for Christmas. We got over 300 packages of little beef sticks, a lot of granola bars. We got little tuna packets, chips, peanuts, trail mixes, deodorant, shampoos, smell good items. You can say thank you for your service and little things like that, but going above and beyond can make a big difference in somebody's life. I guess it's the motivation, the drive to want to do something, bigger than myself. Taylor Freitag. I'm a senior at New Berlin Eisenhower. My family, the VFW, and I all created a Hugs for Heroes fundraiser to send packages overseas for our troops. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
And what a way to help out her community. Taylor will also be sending off her Hugs for Heroes packages soon, and she also hopes to keep this going for future shipments. Well, coming up, we'll take a look at the week ahead.
All right, defense, the biggest issue for the Bucks, according to you right now. They have the Bulls in town tomorrow night.
And how about the Packers? A double whammy action for Green Bay on Monday night. They have the Giants, and then they host the Bucks on Sunday.
Well, let's get back out to Tim in Hoboken, New Jersey. And Tim, real quick, what are you looking at with the way this week has gone and with what is expected on Monday night against the Giants in the final game of the week?
We talked a little bit about A.J. Dillon. I think he would be a key. The wind has shifted. This is a much colder situation than it was even an hour ago. If the weather is like this and Aaron Jones isn't playing, Dillon would be a key if he can play for the Packers. If he can't, they have to replace him.
All right, we'll have to see how that goes. But Tim will be there. He will have previews all throughout the news on Fox 6 News tomorrow. Thanks for joining us tonight. For Tim Van Voren, Lily Zhao, I'm Brandon Cruz. We will see you next Sunday night.